Hello folks and welcome to Tippcast once again with myself, Shanew Stapleton, Head of Sport in Lena Guardian, Shane Brophy, who's going up and down there at the moment for whatever reason. And we're joined by Tip FM's Paul Carroll. Lads, how are you doing?
Good, Shane.
All good, lads.
Great stuff. Look, we thought we'd be announcing a county champion, a senior county champion, but we're not, Shane. We had I would have said an absolutely thrilling finale to that Killarwan and Killadangan match. It could have ended in bitterness over frees been given and were they soft and was there a ball wide and all that. But I think ultimately everyone's relatively happy that it's going to a replay.
Yeah, like it's I think it's incredible to think the third year in a row regulation time couldn't decide a county final. Like if it wasn't for COVID in 2020, that Killadangan and Lockmore match would have gone to a replay. So you think like three draws in a row after 60 minutes is something else. So look, I do think it's an overused cliche, but the draw was a fair result. And look, I know maybe someone Killadangan will be claiming that the last free to Seamus Hennessy was soft, and I do think it was, but considering maybe that I think there's general agreement that one of Killadangan's points is wide earlier in the second half. That look, I think at least it avoided a controversy that maybe we didn't need. And I thought the last 15 minutes was enthralling stuff. Like it was just both teams went for it. After Jerome Cahill's goal, it just seemed to ignite the whole thing. Killadangan seemed to throw off the shackles, then a small, but I thought they were a small bit. They were trying to be too precise in what they were doing after that. They just let loose, and I thought they were terrific in the last 15 minutes. It was probably Killarwan maybe swimming against the tide a small bit in those last, particularly in the forwards. Like particularly when you looked at Niall O'Meara got those two. Like I thought there were two brilliant points he got. Jesus, just say, get out of my way. I'm taking this team on my shoulders, and just did what he had to do. I just thought for entertainment value that last 15 minutes, it was brilliant stuff altogether.
Paul, did you see the Brian Malachney wide point that was given? I mean, his interview afterwards when he was like, no comment, that kind of, it kind of confirmed to the rest of us that it was wide. Did you have a good view of it up in the gantry doing it for Tip FM?
Yeah, we had a great view because it was like we were down the end of the left-hand side up in the gantry, so you're down near that end. And like when he hit it, Shane McGrath was doing co-commentary and he waved his hands wide the minute it came off Brian Malachney's hurley. So it was a dodgy one. Even the umpire kind of looked at the other one and there was no real confirmation from either of them. They just kind of waved the flag. But
and you always know when the defending team is angry, and there was a lot of Killarwan players immediately up in air. Like you always know then something is up. Like and then like
Killarwan bench would have had a good view of it as well.
And and like nobody. Like it. You always know. Like so.
Paul. Go ahead, Paul, and just tell us that, and then obviously your thoughts on the finale.
Yeah, like from that, then all I wanted was, someone don't win this by a point now, or it'd be the talk for the week, So luckily, I know it still is the talk, but luckily there's another go of it. But I loved the game. The last 15 minutes was just pure entertainment, and even commentating, I felt like I played the match at come the end of it. I was knackered after commentating. It was just one of those games that pulled you in for the last couple of minutes. So yeah, no, great game.
Yeah, we don't want to focus too much on the point that was wide, but Shane, at the same time, do you think Hawkeye should have been in use? We know it's available there, but then again, it costs like $7 or $8 a game to operate it. So who pays for it? Can you expect the county board to pay for it?
Maybe, I suppose for a county final, maybe it's probably when you have the facility there, it's probably the day you really need the outlay. You're probably, I think, particularly when I suppose you had the national cameras there, and is it the fee 10,000 for a live county final now? Like maybe it's something you put towards it in terms of the cost, and just make sure every decision is right, because I think the timing of the score was when was it just after Jerome Cahill's goal, and Killadangan were responding well and they were creating a bit of momentum, maybe if that, and it was a relatively easy chance. Like if that was waved wide, would it have stalled Killadangan's momentum a small bit? Seeing that Malachney, who he did brilliant last 15 minutes, I was waiting for him to strike, and like he seemed to come alive in those last 15 minutes. He got one brilliant over the shoulder point from out I think on the far wing as well. So you'd like to think, particularly for next Sunday, because next Sunday's winner on the day, and you'd like to think, whatever what happens next Sunday, I do not want to go to the penalties. And if it goes to penalties because maybe there was one score that should have been given, I'd hate it. But you'd like to think that you pay the outlay for next weekend to have it there, particularly when it's installed and ready to use.
Yeah, what players stood out for you, Paul?
It was actually a game where there was a lot of performers on both sides of the team, or both teams, I suppose. But we've been talking about him a lot. Last time I was on, I was raving about him. But Jerry Cahill was just unreal for Killer1. Obviously, the 2 goals he got, but it's just something about the way he plays the game. It's just different. I think I was saying it on commentary. It's almost like he has the view we have up in the commentary box when he's down on the field. He just sees everything on the field, and there's a few times he came out for a ball and just popped a hand pass that you mightn't have seen when you're down pitch level, but he has great vision, and he was just great to watch. And Paul Flynn was brilliant for Kildangan. He was all over the field. They had him back kind of in the half back line at some stages, and then back up full forward when they needed him, and he always delivers for them. And it was it's a year for Paul Flynn where he's been asked to probably do different things. He's been more out the field this year, but I think he'd only scored was it 1-8 or something in the championship so far, and he scored 1-4 the other day. So when they needed him, he stepped up. Alan Flynn as well was very good, and as Shane was saying, Niall O'Mara coming up late with those 2 points was massive. And there, as I said, there was performers everywhere. Willie Cleary on the frees, you can't not mention him. The last free was fair enough, 45, central enough position, but if you miss it, you lose a county final. It can't be much more pressure than that. So. Great performance, and Owen Hogan I thought was very good as well for Killer1. Great man marking job he done at the back. Yeah, just performers everywhere.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Paul. Shane, I'm going to bring up the pitch map here, and we've kind of looked at some of the matchups from the game. We talked beforehand in terms of who was marking who. So there was a bit of a rejig. Was there any matchups that you saw as being crucial? And just even before you fully answer that, I think Jack Peters looked like a man who was playing through a hamstring injury. To be fair, he wasn't sprinting at full speed, but he was making sure that there was no one coming. Now, once or twice, he let a player almost, get the ball out in front and knock it over the bar. But what he was making sure didn't happen was that someone came through for a goal. Now, obviously, there was a goal towards the end. That was a mistake from Aaron Morgan. But in general, he marshalled the square well, even though he was playing through an injury.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. He started I suppose if there's one game the year you're going to manage your way through it, and he did. And I think, as you say, very little came through the square. Kildangan tend to play the corners as much as they can, and as you mentioned, the goal wasn't really anything to do with him. Yeah, no, I just thought in terms of the matchups, there was definitely probably more man marking going on from the Killer1 side. You see Aaron Morgan going straight into cornerback on Willie Connard. You had Niall O'Mara going out onto Paul Flynn. James Cleary, who'd be more of a cornerback. So definitely that was a man marking job on Sean Hayes. I don't think Killer1 really minded too much if there was anybody not there in the middle. He was man marking. Kieran Cahill, I suppose Joe Gallagher, they're probably in around the same age too. So they probably negate each other small. But I thought the fascinating one was Niall O'Mara and Paul Flynn. You think Paul Flynn scores 1-4 from play. You think, God, Niall O'Mara must have been destroyed. But yet, maybe in the defensive sense he was, but it was in the attacking sense that Niall O'Mara was so good. His assists for two of the goals, were the pass for the first goal. It's so easy in those positions, and again, it was an easy point on for him. And just, I suppose, the coaching and the high level of ability that he saw Jerome Cahill in there, and he just, okay, this is Jerry Cahill 1-on-1. If I give him a pass into his hand, there's a goal in here, and it was that. So that was just that was a fascinating thing for me, just because maybe defensively Niall O'Mara struggled, but going the other way, he was as effective for Killer1 as Paul Flynn was for Kildangan.
Yeah, because at times I thought he was too far away from the top end of the pitch and being able to do a bit of damage. And I was wondering if maybe Craig Morgan, who's obviously injured, if he was available, maybe he could try the man-marking job in Paul Flynn, and that would release Niall O'Mara to be able to drive forward a bit more. But obviously, you have your injuries and you have to play with what you have. Another thing I was going to ask you about, Paul, then was Aaron Morgan. Now, I know obviously once or twice he slipped, and maybe that's footwear, maybe that's down to the pitch, maybe it's, he's a quick enough player, but he constantly got on the ball. Obviously, he had that spill for the goal that Paul Flynn leathered into the net. But I saw his performance and I thought, geez, he's the apple didn't fall far from the tree in terms of the brother as well. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him in a Tip jersey at some point.
Yeah, that's the thing. I felt bad for him because coming out of the game, everyone was talking about that goal, but I thought he had a great game. Like, and as you were saying, he was everywhere. And he's probably asked to do a job he wasn't used to. He's number 12 on his back, but he was operating in the full back line for most of the game. But yeah, he was coming out. He's great. He's reading everything. Nothing was coming easy off him. But yeah, I did feel bad for him because he took his eye off the ball for half a second. And that was enough for Willie Connors to come in, flick it away, and Paul Flynn bang back at the goal. But no, he done well, I thought, to recover from that. But yeah, that was the main talking point coming out was that goal, I suppose. But no, he had an all-round great game, yeah.
Yeah, comments in here, Park Ryan, ref was awful whistle happy during the encounter. Hopefully the replay will be a more fluid affair. I thought the game did go a bit stop-start during the middle, but the start in the end, I thought the quality was really high.
I would have said he was whistle happy. There was only 16 frees in the match, which was very low. Like, so, that third quarter, I'd say the two head injuries Jerome Cahill got definitely slowed that third quarter. There was stoppages there, but it wasn't referees. It was couple of bangs and stuff that had to be dealt with, like, so look, do
you think Willie Connors was somewhat fortunate to get away? Like, I know he got a yellow card, but you know, and I don't think he was going in to do Jerome Cahill, but he did catch him in the head with the shoulder.
I haven't even got a chance to see the match back because for some reason the TG car didn't record the match for me last Sunday. That didn't see it in the skybox, so I haven't even seen that incident. I heard maybe it was a I say from what I saw, from what I saw at the time, I thought it was a heavy foul. I don't know if there was any malice in it, so I couldn't comment on
it. Yeah, I don't think malice, all right, but like it's still one of those. If you put the body in and you connect with someone's head, Paul, you're leaving yourself open to whatever the ref's interpretation is.
Yeah, and Willie definitely plays right on the edge a lot of the time. As I'm the same as Shane now, I haven't actually seen that back only from when I was there, but yeah, it was hard to see from up where we were that there was shoulder to head contact, but yeah, no, in general about the referee, I thought he done as well as you could. Like, you know, there was no one thing people might be annoyed with was the Willie Connors didn't get a penalty, but that was marginal. But no, I thought it was a well refereed game, to be fair.
It's like you know those when you're coming down to that end of the game and you know a ref, he knows it's late and he's got to get every decision. I remember the free he gave to Sean Hayes for the Killananga lead score. You knew he didn't want to give it, but he had to give it because it was a push in the back. Like it's one of those. You could see him there for a split second. I don't really want to give it, but I have to give it because it was a foul. And like it's such a tough call for a referee in that situation. And then you sort of knew when Seamus Hennessy got the ball, like if there was a right person and that was going to maybe sort of create a scenario where you give the referee a decision to make to maybe get the equalising free for Killarwan. Seamus Hennessy was going to be the man, and he did it. Like, so, and look, I don't think no neutral is complaining about having to go again, and maybe Killananga would feel that look, it was a poor call, but I still go back to that phantom point that was given. Like, look, I think just purely on that, I think it was nearly a relief that the free was given. Look, fair play to Willie Cleary. It wasn't the hardest free. Like 46 yards, nearly straight in front of the goal, but with all that pressure on you, God, his free taking approach is brilliant. Like, and in fairness to him, for years up to last year, the one thing Killarwan did not have was a proper free a free taker that could nail their hat on. And how they stumbled across Willie being the man. Like, they would have had Cian Darcy, Niall O'Mara would have taken some, Seamus Hennessy, and they were always 75-80%. But God, Willie Cleary is nearly 95-100% every day out, which is, and fair play to them for spotting it, whoever did within the coaching group.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Some of the stuff we said in the preview seemed to pan out that maybe Killarwan or Kildangan might have probably a better spread of scores, but Kildangan have a better spread of scorers, but maybe Killarwan have the very best scorers. So it was like, you know, obviously Jerome Cahill being one of them, and to be honest, the other side, I thought Joe Gallagher was excellent and carried the can. There was a few sort of players that we've seen play Tip under 21-20 in the last number of years that you'd expect a little bit more out of, you know, the likes of Sean Hayes, Cian Darcy, Billy Seymour, for example, Paul. And I wonder how much, who are the players that are going to step up the next day? Do you think there's any feature from the last game that we'll see something completely different from one of these teams?
I think, in fairness to Sean Hayes, James Cleary literally didn't a centimetre of space the whole game. And that's even with James Cleary getting a yellow card in the first half. So it was... Sean Hayes is someone Kildangan loved to get into space and running onto ball and things like that. So I think Killer One done really well to actually negate that completely. Billy Seymour, he wasn't in the game at all, and then he was off. So his day just kind of ended very quickly. Dan O'Mara on, and Billy is that kind of player where one day he can come out and just completely shoot the lights out altogether. But it just wasn't his day, and Dan O'Mara a player to bring on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's the way Kildangan set up. Is when Dan O'Mara came in, he didn't really get on the ball either. It's as if they never played the full forward position. As quiet as Billy Seymour was, did Dan O'Mara even get more than 2 or 3 possessions when he came in? I don't know. It's something that Kildangan will be looking at, maybe playing more ball into the square. Plus, I suppose in these winter conditions, the ball breaks around the square. Great chance of a goal in these conditions.
Yeah. I thought Declan McGrath was very good at that point.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Paul. Paul's feed seems to be just failing there a small bit, so hopefully he'll come back in again there in a second. But I noticed that Conor Doyle has been put down as the referee for the replay. He got a lovely smack in the head there at one stage. I'm not sure if you saw that. The game was stopped for a second. Yeah, he was just a bit too close to the action, I suppose. A couple of players came over close, caught him across the head. So who knows? He might even have a little bit of a shiner for this one. Do you think that will change the game at all? He's obviously building a very good reputation.
No. He's a very good referee. He'd be familiar with both teams. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he might have refereed maybe their North Championship match in June. So I'd have to double check that. But look, he's a good ref. So look, I thought Kevin Jordan had a fine game. I thought it was very strange that he didn't give a yellow card for the pull down on Willie Connors. It looked like the pull started just outside the square, and it was one of those, if you give, you have to be sure when you're giving it, because if you're not, and Kildangan get a penalty, maybe score it, it's probably the winning goal of the game that late. I thought Kevin had a very, very solid game for a referee.
But I suppose that again showed that the rules in the GA do reward sometimes when you foul, just pulling the man back. River Power says, Jerome Cahill's game gone to a different level, as has Killerwan. Says, arrived as a top senior hurler, have shown powerful mental resilience this year. Yeah, to be fair to Killerwan, when it was there at the very end and they'd gone ahead and they looked in a great spot, and Kildangan, as you'd expect, came back and got themselves in front. They did brilliantly. The free was soft, but they still got themselves in a position to get an equaliser, so fair play to them there. Yeah. Keane O'Kelly, I thought he started really well. That reverse hand pass assist that he did early on was brilliant stuff. You'd wonder, will he be at 100% coming in the next day? Because obviously he had to go off before coming back on. And, you talked as well about maybe Killer One didn't really want to look too deep into their panel. And the fact that both him and Hennessy went off and back on. Yeah. And I noticed Conor Cleary did come on and did fine. But it probably does show that they're going on far more bare bones than maybe Kildangan, who have more options.
Yeah, and look, I would have been shocked now if Monday morning he woke up, his ankle wasn't like a balloon, because I'm sure he probably played through adrenaline in that second half when he came back on. Probably in the long run, maybe. Look, when you're trying to go for a county championship, you don't think about maybe there might be a replay, try and keep myself right. If he's not ready to, if he can't go, what do you do then? They've already used the Peter Canavan trick with Seamus Hennessy. Are they going to go down that road again? Probably not. I'd say they'll probably hold Seamus in reserve this time. I thought when Conor Austin came on, he got on a nice bit of ball there, so he didn't let the side down. Conor Cleary would have played senior for a good few years, and he came on. Didn't really feature an awful lot. So look, they're definitely going to. It looks like between maybe Seamus Hennessy not being able to go 60 minutes and maybe Keane O'Kelly, definitely probably you'd be surprised if he's able to go 60. they're going to have to go into their bench again on Sunday. Whereas you look at Kildangan, like they brought on Jack Glucknan, Rory Gleeson, Dara Flannery, Dara Butler, Dan O'Mara, like five really good players come on there. Like Dan came on pretty early, so and then like so Fergal Hayes didn't even get a run. Like so, like they have plenty of options, even if they wanted to shake up their starting lineup.
So do you expect the replay to follow a similar pattern, or do you think, there's always a chance that if one of the two teams could streak clear? I couldn't really see Kildangan Killarwan, going out and hammering Kildangan, but you just never know how it'll pan out. But I'd imagine it'll be close, puck of a ball by the end of the game.
Yeah, look, I don't foresee either team running away with the replay. Yeah, strangely enough, it's something we asked Sean O'Mara, the Kildangan management after the game, that even though they have the more recent final experience, it was they who looked the more nervy team in the first half, or Killarwan looked like the experienced team that played with a free eagerness and a confidence. And like, I suppose they hit some bad wides in the first half. They probably really should have been further ahead than 3 points. But you'd say, definitely look, the tendency is that replays, the favourites will come through. But I think there'll be a lot of maybe people in Killarwan, maybe they'll go back through the old days. I think back in the day when they played, I think the year they won the All-Ireland club, they drew with a star-studded Blackrock team in a Munster club semi-final, and they thought that was their chance gone. They came out the week later and they destroyed them. Like, so I'm sure they'll be going through all the psychological tools this week to say within Killarwan, look, we're still alive here. While we had some players that played well last Sunday, there's some players that maybe could play a bit better, and it'll be the same on the Kildangan side too. So look, I think it's a final replay both teams can go into with plenty of optimism.
Yeah, and Ballygunner will be licking their chops knowing they'll have an opportunity to study both of these teams again, and the winner is obviously out a week later down there in Waterford. So Paul, just in terms of the replay, how do you see it going?
Yeah, like as most people would think, the chances gone now when an underdog draws in a replay. But I'd imagine everyone probably thought that last year when Lochmore drew with Thurles and they came back and they won the replay. So similar enough to Shane, like both teams will think, geez, we could have won at different times. We had lads that underperformed. We'll have to get that right the next day. So I find it very hard to call. I wouldn't be able to guarantee any team going out and winning it, but I can't wait. Can't wait for the replay.
Yeah, I think going to be a cracker as well. So the Premier Intermediate final was on the other day, Shane. Roscrea are back up senior. How good a performance was this? And obviously, we know that Gortnahoe Glengool have been very good all year, so it's going to hurt them.
Yeah, I know. I just got in for the second half of this game. I suppose for 3/4 of it, Roscrea were very, very comfortable, and I was sort of surprised that I was like, there's no doubt about it. I think Gortnahoe underperformed on the day for whatever reason. They did seem to go very, very direct, which I was surprised with. Like they're a team with plenty of pace and hard running, and like when they really got into their rhythm there around the middle of the second half, you said they got serious momentum. I think they cut it from 7 points back to 3, and then Roscrea got a goal chance, and the Gortnahoe goalkeeper ended up getting injured after it, and I thought and it stalled the game for about 2 or 3 minutes. But that break in play actually helped Roscrea, because they were a little on the ropes at that stage, because Gortnahoe were coming really, really hard. And even after that, like Gortnahoe had a couple of brilliant goal chances. Daryl Ryan made 2 brilliant saves. The one from Dara Maher was unreal. Like Maher did everything right. Low shot, bounced in front of the keeper, but Ryan just got down to a touch it around the post. And I suppose Cian Hayes, who missed nothing all day, he missed the 65, and you just said that was the play of the game. Like for Gortnahoe to get nothing out of that play, that was the difference. But like Roscrea probably shouldn't have been in that position. I think they hit 15 wides. They hit some poor wides. They had more scoring chances. Just that they allowed Gortnahoe to stay in the match. But I think there's no doubt Roscrea were deserving winners on the day.
Yeah, would you go along with that, Paul?
Yeah, they were definitely deserving winners, and they should have been more ahead in the first half. I think they hit maybe 8 wides in the first half, and should have been probably more ahead. But Gortnahoe probably would be disappointed. They underperformed definitely. Like that, they were averaging 226 coming in, and they only scored 16 points in the final, so they'll be disappointed with that. But as Shane mentioned, Darrell Ryan's 2 saves were class, especially the first one. And they just had probably more performers all over the field. Like they'll be, I think all 6. I think I have it here. All 6 of their forwards scored from play, and their half back line for Roscrea was just unreal on the day. Like Dara Tynan, Michael Campion, and Darren O'Connor were just a wall. And for some reason, Gerton Hu decided to keep playing the ball against that wall. Everything went long from Gerton Hu, and I saw Gerton Hu against Port earlier in the year, and they were a different team. They were angling balls into the corner and all that, and for whatever reason on the day, they were just literally lumping ball down the middle of the field, and it was just a joy for Darren O'Connor and the lads back there for Roscrea, and they just come out with ball after ball.
Yeah, with the player profile that Gerton Hu had, there's some good young talent there. So obviously they've lost this final, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they won't be back here next year. Paul?
Yeah, no, really, they've got some great. They're a very balanced kind of team as well. They've players all over the field, but their best player on the day for me was Brian Maher. He was number 7, wing back with red helmet on. He was just up and down for them the whole day, and they're a serious goal threat of a team. Usually, now they weren't the other day, but Dara Maher, he had scored like 5 goals in the last 4 games, and barring an unreal save from Darrell Ryan, he would have had another, but he only had a point on the day, and they just had too many players like that just didn't perform to how good they are on the day, which they'll be disappointed with. But I'm sure they'll be back. They'll be heard of again anyway.
Yeah, so like there was some big celebrations on the final whistle. I saw the clip of Eddie Brennan, who's obviously been involved with Roscrea on TV, Shane. But like Roscrea are, big town. You'd expect that they would be challenging up at senior level, never mind at Premier Intermediate.
Yeah, look, I give them an awful lot of credit because, like, they were probably under ferocious pressure to win this championship. Like, you come down from seeing, like, okay, they would have played second grade senior hurling before, but last year was the first time they were ever not classed as a senior team. I think it's the first time they were ever relegated on the field of play. And like psychologically, for a club with traditional power like that, like that's a lot to deal with. Like Liam England coming back, he's coming back from Mine Temple too. He like the pressure job to take on, even though they had an awful lot of talent. And look, they in fairness, they lived up to it. They got the job done. Look, they're back up senior. They're going next weekend. They're in the under-19 county semi-final against St. Mary's. So like, they love to back it up and say, God, if we can get an under-19 county championship, it means there's probably another layer of underage talent coming through. They'll be able to take it to another level next year. You probably like to think, now they're at senior level, maybe Eddie Brennan might maybe throw his hat in there next year full time, maybe test himself in the senior Tipperary championship water. And look, they'll give Munster into the intermediate All Ireland club a real good go. Like Liam England was with Mine Temple too, as I said last year. So, and they lost the first round to Kilmiley, and they went all the way to the All Ireland final. So he will know, he'll have experience of, okay, what didn't work with Mine Temple too? Why weren't we ready to play that game? Because they were well beaten. They're playing Ballysaggart, I think, on Sunday week. You'd like to think with Ballysaggart having not played in about 3 months, they're 2 of their best players in Australia. Like, they're ripe for the picking. And if you win the first round in that, you're back on the horse again. They have, I think, according to the Munster Council fixtures, if they win that, they have a home semi-final like in Inniscarra of Cork. Like, that's a long old drive for maybe up to Neenet for Inniscarra. And like, in fairness to Liam England, he didn't shy away from it when he was asked about it last weekend. He more or less embraces where are they 4 games from Croke Park. And when you think about it, it's not like their target was to get back senior, to have that. Everything else now is a bonus. Like when you get the opportunity to represent your county and maybe get to Croke Park, I don't think you should throw your hat at it. It might. I don't think they'll just throw the hurleys down now and say our jobs. I think they'll really go at it and see how far they can take it.
Yeah. There'll be a couple of teams that'll be operating at a good level. Like, you think about it, Danesfort won the Kilkenny Intermediate the other day. They're ranked as the 13th best team in Kilkenny as things stand now versus Roscrea 17th. So there is still an advantage for the odd county.
And Naas are gone. So like the Kildare champions are gone. So like it's like you'd think it's open for anybody that wins that grade this year. And look, I've been crying out for years that our second grade champion should be going into that competition. And I'd just be fascinated to see how better set are we. Look, Roscrea could go out on Sunday week and be bet by Ballysaggart, and we'll be looking like clowns. But I'd be made look like a clown. But I'd love to see Roscrea. I'd love to see them go as deep as they can.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, Roscrea and Eddie Brennan, I might as well let people know, if they don't already, that there's a coaching clinic going on in Moneygall on Bank Holiday Monday. So it'll be the day after the county final replay, and obviously the Premier or the intermediate county final, which involves Moneygall and Lara. Niall Moore and Eddie Brennan and Paddy Stapleton will be there doing a coaching clinic. Under 14s are free, which is like on a Bank Holiday Monday, you might wake up, you might think what they do with the kids, bring them down to this and let them see plenty of the coaching going on there. So, Shane, I suppose, or Paul, just to finish up just before we let you go, Shane's point there about Roscrea, where can they go? Can you see them having a right run from here?
That's a reason again. Oh.
Yeah, in fairness to Liam England, like their manager, when you're interviewing managers after games, oftentimes they'll just be bland enough. But he came out and, as Shane said, saying we're thinking about Cromark, and we've thought about this since February. He was saying. So to have that belief, I'm sure that he's instilled that in the players. So and I think they really want to go far in this competition. So I think that'll stand to them, and they have a great chance to beat Ballysaggart, given that they haven't played in so long and they lost their county final. So, I could see them going far now, I must say.
Yeah, and it's like, what is it, 51? Is it 51 years after winning an All Ireland at senior level? Who knows? All right, Paul, thanks very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll be chatting again soon.
Cheers, thanks.
Paul.
Okay, great to have Paul on there. We'll bring in Thomas Conway now. Thomas, how are things with you?
Good, Shane. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad at all. Can you talk to us about the Camogie final at the weekend? Drum made it 4 in a row with a 310 to 13 points win over Clonalty Rossmore. Emer McGrath again in flying form.
Emer McGrath in flying form. Yeah, it was a tour de force from Drum in the second half. They took a while to get going. They were under the cosh. They were under pressure. At one point, they were 7 points to 1 down, and they kind of clawed it back. By the interval, it was 8-4 to Clonalty. Look, Clonalty had been the better team. They had kind of swarmed Drum in the middle third, and they had overwhelmed them. And I was speaking to some of the Drum players afterwards. They put that down to nerves. I mean, Emer McGrath said it, and Mairead Evanston said similarly. They were really nervous going into this game, perhaps more so than on any previous occasion before a county final. And I suppose there were a number of factors to do with that. You know, Clonalty had a bit of momentum. Obviously, everything that's happened to them in the club this year, it just created a bit of a feeling of apprehension amongst the Drum players. But they really responded well in the second half. 3 goals at crucial times. They got one just after the break. Niamh Tracy, brilliant individual goal. Emer McGrath flicked home a goal then in the 51st minute, and then Michelle Woodlock finished the job with a couple of minutes to go. Kind of an opportunist goal, capitalising on a mistake from the Clonalty keeper. But I was really impressed. I thought Drum really showed their class in that second half, and they kind of played the brand of camogie that you would associate with Drum. You know, getting forward from the half back line. Mairead Evanston set up Emer McGrath's goal. Aoife McGrath got forward. She hit a beautiful point from the wing. And obviously up front, Emer was central to everything. Her free taking was more or less, beyond reproach. She didn't miss anything. So really impressed with Drum in that second half.
And would you say that Clonalty Rossmore are probably just that bit too reliant and caught the van? They scored just 2 points from play, 1 from caught, 11 frees, and then Emer Burke with another one.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other way of putting it. And look, I've said it before, that is, in some respects, Coit is obviously their strength. So they play to that in the sense that they work extremely hard around the half-forward line to win frees and secure frees in the knowledge that she'll convert them. And she does convert them, but they are still too reliant. And I think I said last week that they'll have to score a goal to beat Drum. They didn't. Casey Hennessy was kind of more or less nullified in the full forward line. I mean, she won a few frees in fairness to her, but she failed to get on enough ball really to pose a viable goal threat. And Clonalty really suffered ultimately because of that, particularly in the second half. They kind of, I think they kind of failed to adjust to the tempo of the game in the second half, what I might have done, I might have brought Casey Hennessy out the field and tried kind of to play maybe a counter-attacking game, because Drum were dominating possession at that point. But really, you have to look at, Coit was brilliant. There's no other way of saying it. I mean, she's incredible from frees, but they are too reliant on her. And, you know, in order to win a county title at this level, in order to beat a Drum team, they kind of have to diversify their attacking threat, I think.
Yeah. Shane, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'd say it's 4 in a row is an incredible achievement from Drum, and I think it just shows you that they look like a team that they're refreshed. I know, like, they had a long campaign last year between the held over 2020 and then the 2021 Munster. I just thought maybe that Munster final against Garfield Gunnerley, they looked like a bit small, a bit stale. But look, they definitely seem to be fresh and firing again. And like, I reading some of the comments in the paper this week, they are going to give this Munster and All-Ireland campaign one right go, because I think they probably feel that they weren't at their full best last January, February, whenever that Munster final was on, that they didn't get a proper chance to enjoy being crowned 2020 Munster champions. They nearly had to go in straight away and defend their title again. And I think they'll probably feel this is a proper chance for them to go and do something. I think they play the Waterford champions, who are first timers in De La Salle. They'll probably have too much experience for them. And then, look, I think Scariff are still, I think they came out of Clare, so they're still there. I think out of Tabala, look, I think they won Wexford again. So, but look, I did, and the Lou look a stronger, but I think they have a couple of players back too. They have a very deep panel. So look, they look pretty strong. And like, it's incredible to think after Burge O'Hara doing 4 in a row, and a lot of those times Drum were the bridesmaids, if you're to say it. Now they've done 4 in a row in no time at all, and they're the dominant team. And even though the Tip Championship has become very, very competitive in the recent years, maybe more than it was previous to that, so it probably adds to how good that 4 in a row success has been.
And afterwards, Thomas, did Pat Ryan have much to say in terms of where they'll go from here and what they're hoping for from, let's say, a run in Munster?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's very much, you know, next game, take it as it comes, next challenge. You know, they say they're not looking too far ahead, but I know myself, I know Pat, and I know he's an ambitious manager. He's hugely committed to the group. And I think, like I've said, there's an All-Ireland in them. And I mean, at the back of their minds, they're thinking that. I think they were stung by the Scariff Ogonnelloe defeat last January. Like they had a chance to level it in the last minute. Eamon McGrath uncharacteristically missed a fairly straightforward free. And I think that was probably psychologically, that provided motivation, ammunition for them going into this year. They want to get back to that place. And like Shane, I probably expect them to overcome De La Salle. It's their first time out of Waterford. You'd imagine Drum have, too much experience. But they've also added to their panel, like they have kind of a couple of younger players who've come into the team this year. And then obviously they're able to draw on the old guard. I mean, they brought Joanne Ryan on, and she did a very good job in the second half. She won a lot of ball out in the wing. And they have other players. They have that well of experience which they can draw on, but they also kind of have a streak of youth in the team now. So I mean, they're equipped to go far. They're equipped certainly to land another Munster title. They're every bit as good as Scariff Ogonnelloe, who will want it though just as much this year. And they have an excellent team as well. Whether they can challenge Old Earth Bala, like, it remains to be seen. Like, they were probably off the pitch against Sarsfields last year in the delayed 2020 semi-final. And I think they're probably ready to take to make that step up and to make that leap forward now. So, the sky's the limit for them, really.
And I'm not sure how much you would have seen them this year, but Burrislee will be facing Shannon Rovers this weekend in the intermediate final. Do you have any thoughts, Thomas, on how that might go, or would you have seen them much?
Yeah, well, I haven't seen a whole lot of them, but I was speaking to both captains, to Aoife Malochney of Shannon Rovers and Aideen Hogan, and certainly both of them are really up for it. And the one thing which they did relay to me was, the degree of competition in the intermediate championship. Both have had a hard run to the final. You had two exhilarating semi-finals. I think the Bursley period of extra time, and they eventually won it. And sorry, I broke up there for a second. Shannon Rovers came through a tough game as well. So they're both really up for it. I feel myself, Shannon Rovers probably, they were beaten last year in the final by, I think, Knockavilla, Kickham's, beaten comprehensively in the past two finals, actually. Thurles Sarsfields the year before that. They really want this, and it's probably time for them now to make that leap forward. Like they have phenomenal numbers down there in Ballinderry. Like I think I said in a piece, like they're defying the laws of demography, demographics, population, because they just seem to have players coming out their ears. They have a massive panel down there, very committed as a bunch, and I think I would probably give them the edge this weekend over Bursley.
Like
brilliant stuff.
Yeah, they do a big number. Like I said, they would. There is no real Camogie club in Borrisacane, so they pull in those players. And up to a couple of years ago, my own club Lara, our underage section went quiet, so a lot of our girls had to go there, and some of them are still there. We have our underage section going again, but like there would be a couple of, like Celine Guinan, who would have been the Tip Minors. She's from Lara, but I suppose she played her underage Camogie with Shannon Rovers, and that's why it's our adult club. Like, so even though we have an adult team, if you know what I mean. So
okay, well, no bitterness out to you there, Shane.
No, sure. Look, no, sure. Say her mum is our senior club secretary, so she'll be hoping for an intermediate Camogie win on Saturday, and her son Dara, or Celine's brother Dara, will be probably starting with us on the intermediate final on Sunday in Thurles. So I know there'll be someone in that family be hoping for an intermediate double this weekend. So
don't give away too much team news now, Shane, about your boys this weekend. Thomas, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll be chatting to you again soon.
Thanks, lads. Thank you.
Here's Tom.
Okay, so it's going to be Lara against Moneygall in the intermediate final on Sunday. We're going to bring in Liam Hogan to chat about that. And I know, Shane, you want to probably remain a little bit silent because obviously you're involved with Lara heading into this game. So, Liam, your own thoughts on the semi-finals that happened recently. So Moneygall had a great win over Skahina Rinky, and Lara, hugely impressive, having a heavy victory over Drummond Inch B.
Well, hello, Shane, and hello, Shane, first of all. Yes, the both teams had semi-final wins there last week. Lara really came annihilated, you could say, Drummond Inch, and really should be no surprise looking at what Lara have done over the past while since, as I said in my preview, we're turning the complete circle now. They're meeting Moneygall. They met Moneygall in the first round of the North Championship, the semi-final, and they beat them very handily over in Roscrea. Now, Moneygall were short a good few players at the time, but they have gained ground since. Moneygall in the semi-final against Skahina Rinky to a tight one. Skahina Rinky, it was great for a team that's junior champions to come up and do so well. And a strong team, from what I hear about them and read about them, and I'm not surprised that Moneygall didn't get it all their own way. Going into the final, I feel that Lara will have that extra firepower up front. They won't have it all their own way either, but I think they have that little bit extra that will bring them over the line. Have Patrick Maher at full forward, and like what he's having at this grade. You have the three forwards, Christopher and Colm and David and Keane Hogan, who is always worth 3 or 4 points every day he goes out. Niall and Owen McIntyre are all household names in our Tipperary, and if that doesn't work, then you have Brian back at centre back who could score 4 or 5 points. His long range free accuracy is very good, and that for me, there's a lot of pluses on that team that any team would love to have. Now look at Moneygall are a solid team, and they have stars as well. Paddy Forty, Joe Forty, Sean Kennelly. They have a good solid working half forward line there. Brendan Toohey centre forward and Bob Kelly, and as I said, Lara won't have it all their own way, but I think they'll have enough to get over the line this time.
Yeah, well, Moneygall were intermediate North champions last year, so obviously, you know, they have a bit of quality there. But like you said, there was a heavy win for Lara earlier this year, 5-24 to 213. And the other thing with Moneygall is last year's captain, Owen White, he's been injured lately. Jack Kerwin went off injured in the quarterfinal. James Carroll went off injured in the semi-final. So they've had to dig into their panel. Obviously Lara would have more of the Semple Stadium experience, having been there in a Seamus O'Reen final and played there twice a couple of years ago. Whereas Moneygall, it's probably fewer their players, at least the likes of Joe Fogarty, who you've mentioned, and Sean Kennelly. They've played big games for the Tip under-20s in recent times. So, will there be an awful lot of pressure on the likes of Sean Kennelly and Joe Fogarty to really hit the ground running at Semple Stadium and show their class there in that wide open field if they're to keep into Lara, who are huge favourites? I'm
afraid to say there will be a lot of pressure on their shoulders, all right. If you're a Lara supporter, you would worry if this heavy favourites tag would be too much on them. But no matter what way you weigh it up, I think they have the talent to get over the line.
Yeah. Who's really impressed you for Lara in the games that you've watched in recent times? I know you named a lot of them have an awful lot of quality, but is there any players that has stood out to you?
Yeah, Colin Forty stood out for me. Patrick Maher stood out for me. Of course, that's a given. Like the career that man has had has been a fantastic career. Such a dedicated man to his training. I saw them against Shannon Rovers in the North final, and there was a moment of hope for Shannon Rovers followers when we got a great goal at the start. Eamon Hock scored a great goal at the very start of the game, but once Lara got on top of us, there was only one team in it, and I suppose the fright they got maybe probably served them well in going into the semi-final when they played Roscrea and when they needed extra time. And I'm not really surprised that was a close game, because this is what close neighbours, a game when you're involved in close neighbours, that's what happens. Like, you know, Boris had nothing to lose, complete outsiders by a long chalk, and in a year that hasn't been going that particularly well for them, or through injuries and whatnot. But once they got their forces together and you had Philip Austin coming back to fitness and Gary Ryan and with a free taker like Oisin Larkin, who has been fantastic this year, I'm not surprised that they gave Lara lots to think about. But Lara's experience got him over the line, and what he's a boost. Saudi, he wasn't there for the game against Roscrea, but he's been there for the semi-final. He'll be there on Sunday as well, and he's a massive addition to the team.
Yeah, Lara's Pat, like Carrick Davids beat him by 15 points, Golan Kilfeacle 17 points, Borlahan by 3 points as well. So like you were writing yourself, Liam, about scoring 860 on the way and like a scoring difference of plus 35. Jeez, it really does seem daunting, doesn't it?
It does, and they were the highest of the 16 intermediate teams, and Moneygall were next to 22, plus 22. So that'll just tell you the two best teams are going to the final, into the final. And isn't it ironic? If you weren't around for years and years, you came down suddenly to see here at Moneygall and Lara were playing in a final. You'd say, "Oh, not senior final." No, it's not. It's intermediate final, and that's the times we're in. There's hills and hollows, of course. Every club has hills and hollows, and both teams now will be striving to get back into the Premier Intermediate grade for next year. Like, and you know what 12 months can do. Lara 2 years ago in a Seamus O'Reen final, beaten narrowly, following year relegated, and that as a result they're down here now in the intermediate grade, and can't wait to get back up. And like Roscrea last Sunday, they'll feel that is their place to be up there amongst the top teams.
Yeah, and I suppose just to finish off, is there any particular matchups that you're looking forward to here? Or?
Yeah, Camogie now will have and Bonner Maher will be a nice one down at the edge of the Moneygall Square. Keeping an eye on Colin Forty will be another problem for the Moneygall defence as well. And up front, then you have Brian Hogan and Brendan Toohey, and Brendan Toohey has been a great servant to the Moneygall team. He's a real workhorse, and as is Bob Kenny on his right hand side there. And then you have you have Joe Forty on the left half forward. Like so, the Lara half back there will have a lot to do to keep an eye on those players.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I really appreciate you joining us to give us that preview, Liam, and maybe we'll talk to you on the far side of it.
Okay, Shane. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll bring back in Shane Brophy. We're good enough to keep you out of the chat altogether, but in terms of going beyond the game, what's the build-up been like? The excitement of going to Semple Stadium to play a big match there with Lara, and just the parish. Are they buying into this? What's the enjoyment levels like?
I look at it. It is like it's a county final. Like it's I suppose the only bit disappointed you don't have the 2-week build-up. Like you're just going from semi to final. I suppose it's ideal for the players that you're not overly thinking about it maybe. But look, it's great, and I suppose getting down to Semple Stadium too, like it's extra special. I sort of had there was rumours that the final would have been played in Nina, but I suppose once one of the matches last weekend was for replay, I suppose particularly it Kildangan and Killerwan borders Moneygall, like it's like they're not too far. All 4 clubs are not too far from each other, so it made sense probably to have a double header. Plus, look, from Laura's point of view, like when we got to the Oreen final 2 years ago, only 100 of our spectators were allowed in. Like a lot of our, particularly our young, I suppose the young juvenile members who would love to see maybe their own club maybe getting up and seeing them and playing in Semple Stadium. A lot of them didn't get that opportunity 2 years ago, so they're going to get it now. And look, please God, maybe we'll give them something to celebrate come Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, so we have North Premier Intermediate champions, and we're guaranteed North champions at intermediate and also at senior level. And just as you said there about Moneygall and those other clubs who are very close by geographically, Monday, if you're waking up hungover after one of those games, bring the kids down to St. Flannan's Park for the coaching clinic that I'm going to be running there. So looking forward to that. Shane, we'll probably just about leave it there. Don't forget to everyone pick up a copy of the Nina Guardian to preview the big matches coming this weekend and obviously review what happened at the weekend.
Best luck with the clinic on Monday. Like it should be a good day.
Yeah, please God, it'll be a great turnout for it. Thanks very much, Shane. We'll be chatting to you all again next week.
Cheers.